Representative Planda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 18, which I jointly sponsored with my good friend Wes Rutherford, eliminated the requirement that the state hold a special primary election to replace a party's candidate for Congress if the special primary is uncontested. The Senate added one amendment, and it is in the form of Senate Bill 252, sponsored by Senator Peterson. We have a House companion bill, House Bill 530, sponsored by Representatives Hambley and Arndt. And basically, it authorizes a local elected official of an entity that has levied a hotel lodging excise tax to simultaneously hold public position and serve on the Board of Trustees of a Convention and Visitors Bureau without constituting the holding of incompatible offices or employment. Basically, if there is a conflict, then that individual can simply waive voting on that, abstain from voting on that alleged conflict. I would urge my brothers and sisters of the House to concur in the Senate amendments.
Question is, shall the Senate amendments be agreed to? The chair recognizes Representative Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment that came over from the Senate is in violation of an Attorney General opinion, which says there is a conflict of interest by having a member of the Board of Commissioners also serving on a Convention and Visitors Bureau. And the reason for that conflict is quite obvious, that the Board of Commissioners votes taxpayers' monies to the CVB, and then you got that same commissioner sitting on the CVB voting that same money out to purposes unknown to the taxpayers because the CVB is not subject to the public records laws or the open meetings laws. So for that reason, I urge a no vote on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question is, shall the Senate amendments be agreed to? The chair recognizes Representative Hambley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate it. Yeah, to speak to House Bill 530, we did have 3 hearings in it. In state and local government, we had a number of parties obviously come out and voice those concerns. As Representative Planda pointed out, if there's a conflict of interest, it is resolvable. And likewise, public officials, as all of us know, are still obligated to file ethics reports on an annual basis. In fact, and for many circumstances, what happened with the Attorney General opinion, it's removed anybody in a CVB, actually a Convention Visitors Bureau board, that actually had any reference to filing ethics reports. CVB members are not obligated to do so. So for many of the communities, this is a very important function for them to have the connection, know what the CVB, what the Convention Visitors Bureau is spending on. It had the full support of the County Commissioners Association of Ohio, the Convention Visitors Bureau Association, the Ohio Municipal League, as well as the Ohio Township Association, and I urge concurrence on this vote.
Question is, shall the Senate amendments be agreed to? The chair recognizes Representative Brinkman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it seems to me with all the things that are swirling around us, we should do everything we can to make sure there's not even an inference of impropriety going on in state government. When you have one elected official serving in 2 separate positions where they can influence the dollars they vote to the board and then how it is spent, that is a big problem. And I encourage everyone to vote no on this bill.
Question is, shall the Senate amendments be agreed to? The chair recognizes Representative Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do think that adding this to this bill is, it doesn't give us time to flesh it out. And I'm hearing both sides, and I know we've got to vote, so we've got to make a decision. But I do want to add one piece, because I know we all the time say, well, you know, elected officials shouldn't be on these boards. But let me say this, that I think that there is a problem with us having unelected boards who get public dollars, who get to be behind closed doors making decisions and never have to face the taxpayers. I do think it's a problem as elected officials if you can't even get the budget of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I've run into elected officials who don't even know that my bureau is about $1 million in debt, because they don't get they don't get a chance to have a say. And so I think when you're talking about selling the city, representing the city, and then getting taxpayer money, I do think those who are elected should at least know what the budget is, should at least know what the money's being spent on, should at least know, are we getting our best bang for our buck? How many conventions have we really brought in based on how much money we've given? So I do think that when you're talking about a tax, there should be some elected body who is accountable to the public to be able to know those kind of things. Walk up to some of your commissioners. Ask them, do they know what the budgets are? Most of them are going to say, no, it's another board. They don't know much. They have them come in for a ribbon cutting or announcement of a convention, but they don't really know where the money, you know, how much the money is being spent. They may know that it's not being misspent, but they don't know exactly all of the particulars. And then it makes it tough for Convention and Visitors Bureau, because when it's time for them to come and present what they're doing, if you don't have an elected official that's interested, you tend not to be important. You don't know how important it is to expand a convention center or to bring dollars in and what the economic impact really is. So I do think that we definitely need to have elected bodies informed. In Cincinnati, we have a situation now where monies are available, and now everybody wants the Convention Visitor Bureau money, every project, but you don't have the elected officials at the table, and you have an unelected body, and some of them have conflicts of interest. So I just would want to put that piece on the table for another side of the equation as you consider this bill.
Question is, shall the Senate amendments be agreed to? Chair recognizes Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very interesting discussion for me. In my particular district in Ottawa County, 1 out of every 6 jobs is related to the travel and tourism industry. In Erie County, it's 1 in 4. So when you talk about an economic development strategy, how can you not include travel and tourism as a part of your activities as a county commissioner? I will have to tell you, in my particular county, we had a problem when it was 100% represented by private sector individuals on that board, to the point that they were almost insolvent. In fact, the Ottawa County Commissioners had to lend them $1.2 million to be able to keep the doors open, and required a restructuring of that board so we had oversight. We couldn't ignore the importance of that industry and not have some public oversight on those public dollars. Now, we did have a number of hearings in the state and local government where you heard some of those positive testimony, what happens when you engage both the private sector and elected officials with the oversight and the transparency. It can be done. Let's not use one bad actor to destroy what many other counties are working forth and putting together that partnership. And I would have a little bit difference of opinion on what that Attorney General's opinion actually read. It basically said the statute was somewhat silent and it was not clear whether there was a conflict of interest. So that's why we are doing this piece of legislation, to give clarity, to allow those counties to be able to have that kind of transparency and engagement and support from their elected officials for the oversight to drive economic development. I have to tell you, it is a major, major industry. And in fact, in my particular district, we are now combining 2 boards, both the Erie County and the Ottawa County Visitors Bureau Board, with an overarching strategy to continue to drive and maximize the use of those dollars. It clearly has to have elected officials on that to be able to make those kinds of decisions, and I would urge support.
Question is, shall the Senate amendments be agreed to? The House will prepare and proceed to vote. Have all members now voted? Clerk will take the roll. 67 affirmative votes, 22 negative votes. The Senate amendments are agreed to.